Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I am Fox, and today I wanted to show you the build that I use for soloing Tidal Basin. This also works really well in a group, but I always find that Tidal Basin is an incredibly difficult mission to matchmake with. It's still the hardest mission in the game, and it is quite tough to find some success unless you have a very well optimized, experienced group. So the build that I've created is, I think, one of the best builds for just clearing through this, either by yourself if you are confident enough to do so, or to play within a group. I wanted a way to use the rigger set, and I feel that it plays really well with this build as it gives us some really good skill damage buffs just for using the skills. And for the skills that I am using, I feel that this is the best way to do it. You could just use a more traditional skill build set, but the way that this runs just seems to pair really well, particularly with the skill that we are using, the oxidizer, as it's the best way to give it a damage buff without having to use glass cannon, for example, which is very dangerous in Tidal Basin, or really any mission, or something like kinetic momentum, for example. There are other skills or talents on your chest and back that you can use to improve the damage of these skills, but I just felt that this was the best and easiest way to do it, was giving myself a large amount of survivability and skill damage. So what we'll do in the usual fashion is look at the build. Of course I will include the timestamps for this as well, so you can just skip straight to those if you want. I'll show you exactly how to play the build as well, and then what I'll do is load into Tidal Basin on Heroic, and I'll be completing that solo. I will be timestamping the individual parts of that mission, so I'll be cutting out the sort of in between running around parts, because I don't want the video to be too long. So again, if you do want to skip to a particular part, I know for the most part the end room, the end area, is, whilst killing Wyvern, is definitely the hardest, and you can go straight to that as well if you prefer. So let's have a look at the build first of all. You do want to be running Technician for this for a few different reasons. One, it gives you the +1 skill tier, so you can afford to have the 1 blue rolled onto your build. 2, it gives us the large amount of additional damage to skill proxies and mechanical items, which is very important in this mission, as you need to be breaking down quite a few different things that are mechanical based, and it does indeed work with that. And 3, it gives us 10% skill damage, which, rigger does lack a little bit of skill damage, and this really helps to make up for it. So in my opinion, Technician is the best, but I've also ran this with Demolitionist to absorb an explosion every 60 seconds, which is really useful, as the most dangerous thing in this mission, in my opinion, are the Grenadiers and the drone controllers, and you need to be killing those first, so a little bit of knowledge of the mission is very useful. Another great option is Gunner, as you get 10% armor on kill regardless of how you get that kill, so that also works really well, but I still think Technician is best in slot here. Running the Capacitor, it is quite simply the best weapon in the game for skill builds at the moment, as it gives us first of all a large amount of skill damage. At full stacks we actually get 60% additional skill damage, which pairs beautifully with the skills that we're using, but you also gain a lot of additional weapon damage. And as you may remember from one of my previous videos, it's one of the best weapons, if not the best weapon, to pair with Memento for a skill build. These two both buff weapon damage and skill damage, so they synergize very well with each other and just have a lot of sort of benefits to be paired up with. Second weapon is entirely your choice. It really doesn't make a difference. I don't use these at all. If you want something to deal with enemies at close range, you could use the mop for the 10% armor on kill, but this is predominantly a skill damage build, so I tend not to use my other two weapons. This is mostly all about the Capacitor. The rigger set gives us a few unique bonuses. So the 2 and 3 piece give us skill haste and skill duration. Now for the two skills that we're using, this is very powerful. The oxidizer is going to be our main skill for this mission, as it does actually clear up a lot of areas that are very difficult without using this skill, and the duration is indeed buffed by the skill duration stat. So as rigger does give us this, it means that the cloud lasts longer on the floor and is very powerful. The 4 piece gives us a Tender Befriend talent, so interacting with our deployed skills gives us 25% additional skill damage for 10 seconds. Now this can't be refreshed, but that doesn't really make a difference, as soon as the 10 seconds runs out it can be reapplied, per skill. Yes, you can have both skills active at the same time as well with this additional buff. So the way to obtain this buff, it does actually explain how to do it. The interactions include actually using or deploying the skill, changing the skill's target, which is very easy with the drone that we're using, and healing the skill, which does work with the Artificer for those that don't know, but we're not going to be using that today. It does also work with the armor kit as well, so if you pop an armor kit on Technician, it will heal your skill if it's close, so the turret could be a very good choice here, but I do prefer the Striker drone, as it does two things. One, it's very good at automatically targeting and changing targets quite easily, where the turret sometimes bugs out with that. So, until they patch that, I think that the striker drone is actually best for this option. And two, it's a very effective method of distracting the enemies. I did test this out with the decoy for a few different sections in the mission. It is good to swap the oxidizer off for the decoy if you really want to, particularly rooms that are heavy with grenadiers and drone controllers, but I still think that the striker drone is best as it gives us damage and the ability to distract. The chest piece gives us the additional best buds talent, which increases our damage buff from 25% to 50%. So this does give us quite a substantial amount of additional damage, which really makes up for the lack of skill damage that comes from the 2 and 3 piece. Each of your pieces you want to be rolled into skill damage. Now, because you can craft rigor, it might be worth doing so for one of your pieces so that you can re-roll it to blue. Skill-based gear sets are weighted towards having skill as their minor attribute, so skill damage, status effects, repair skills, so it's not hard to get one with skill damage built into it, but I do think that it is important to have one rolled to blue and not red. As you can see, this is skill tier +1 and skill damage, the holster is the same, and of course the gloves are the same as well. We're running Murakami here for the additional skill duration. Now again, you could argue that Wyvern would be better here, or even maybe some Empress in here, but I still think this is the best way to do it because Murakami gives us the skill duration, which again pairs very nicely with the oxidizer as it makes the cloud last a lot longer on the floor. You can see you're actually up to 17 seconds, which is pretty insane when you think about it. It just lasts for a ridiculous amount of time. And as the damage of this is tick damage, the longer the duration, quite simply the more the damage. So skill duration actually equates to more skill damage on this build with the oxidizer. But as the duration of the striker drone is a lot less than the turret, again skill duration just equates to more damage. The other advantage of running the Emperor's Guard, so this is the named Murakami needs, which is a DZ exclusive, so bear that in mind, is it gives us +1 armor regen. And this is a very difficult mission. A lot of the enemies are aggressive and there are a lot of explosive based skills and enemies in this mission, so the extra armor regen is very powerful. The final part of this build is the Memento Exotic, which again gives us a lot of additional armor regen, specifically the long-term buff when we collect 30 trophies, which is actually incredibly easy, and I'll show you how you can get them basically for free. Gives us an additional 3%, so we're now sat at 4% armor regen, which with the 1.1 million armor that we have is pretty substantial. You're going to be regenning close to 50k per second, which is insane. That's usually something you'd only see with a 5 or 6 blue Bellstone based PvP build. So you do get some pretty insane armor regen with this build and it works really well. But more importantly, it gives us skill efficiency. Now we're going to get a total of 30% skill efficiency because this is a tier 6 build. So you can see even with the one blue that I've got rolled here, the skill is, if you go up to the top here, tier 6, because we're getting the +1 from our technician. That means that skill efficiency is going to be essentially maximized here. And for those of you that don't know, skill efficiency is every skill stat in the game, which yes includes skill duration, again very important for the 2 skills. So these are going to be buffed way past the 17 seconds and 299 seconds that you see here. But it's also going to give us skill damage, skill haste, and the things we're not going to be using like skill health, skill repair, and status effects. We don't use those as much, but the point is that if you do swap out your skills, it's going to buff everything. We also gain a nice amount of weapon damage as well. So as we have the +1 skill tier on here, the +1 weapon core on here, we're going to get a little bit of additional weapon damage from that, but also for the fact that we get, when we pick up a trophy, we get the bonus additional 5% weapon damage and the long-term duration of that as well. So we're getting weapon damage, additional armor as we have 2 blue cores on here, and a ton of skill efficiency with the armor regen. For solo and hybrid builds, Memento is quite simply best in slot. You could argue that the waveform holster could be a better choice here, but I don't agree with that. I think that Memento is just too good not to use for solo builds, particularly in difficult missions such as Tidal Basin. Our skills of choice, I know we've gone into this a little bit, but are the striker drone, for the reasons that I mentioned before, its ability to distract, and for its constant damage and ability to change targets a lot easier than the turret and the oxidizer. We're going to be using the oxidizer for breaking down the weak points on the turrets throughout the mission, as well as the helicopters. So this is really good, as we can essentially damage these from quite a range, from the safety of cover from practically the other side of the map, and particularly for the last part where we need to kill the rockets, the missile launchers. When we're at Wyvern, this is actually one of the best skills in the game to use in a group or in a solo play. So this works really well. My stats aren't amazing for my weapon, but this isn't a weapon based build, so we're not going to go into too much of these today. We do have the armor and health damage, which does work well with skills. Armor damage does indeed buff skill damage, so by having that on this weapon, and you can see mine is maxed out at 12%, I re-rolled this a few times, that further buffs these against any enemies that have armor. Unfortunately the health damage doesn't work for this particular part, but that's not the end of the world. So pretty straightforward build to put together. 4-piece rig with 1 roll to blue, the named Emperor's Murakami Knees Emperor's Guard for the additional 1%, and then of course Memento. The mods that I'm using are skill haste across the board, so I've got 3 skill haste mods, as ultimately this is a skill build and getting your skills back faster is always going to be better. So that's the build. Let's have a quick look at exactly how this all works. So by default, when you pop your when you pop your oxidizer, you'll see that I'm doing 191k. Now you can stack these up and they do exactly the same amount of damage twice over. So this technically stacks infinitely. The more of these you deploy, the more damage that they do. So you can see it does do quite a large amount of damage. But obviously we're going to be buffing this quite substantially as well. If you're able to get your stacks up quite high, you can get a much larger amount of damage. So without the rigger buff, it is 146. Let's get some stacks built up. We're now at 40 stacks. If we deploy this now, we're now hitting 259k per tick, and we can deploy 2 of these. Now of course enemies do move out of the radius of this, so the only reason that we're going to be using the oxidizer is to be killing the weak points on the turrets, the helicopters and the missiles, and for enemies that are in cover. It also works very well against drones. So if you see an explosive drone coming towards you, or you can see the enemy that is applying the drone, throwing out the drones, you want to throw this at them as well. So you want to use this for all the mechanicals, including the Warhounds, any drone controller, and yeah, basically just anything mechanical, and it is incredibly potent. The turret, of course, the drone is just there for killing everything else, and you want to be changing target as frequently as possible to keep up that damage buff. So it's pretty simple to play around with this. What we'll now do is load into the mission, and I'll show you exactly how each stage works. Right, so here we are at the start of Tidal Basin. What I'm going to do here is select it as Heroic with no directives. This is going to be completely solo, so you can see I've got nobody with me. Let's get started. So you can see we currently have no stacks built up from our Memento. Now if you want to, you can just kill the Warhounds outside this area to build up some stacks first for a solo run, which is never a bad idea, but just for the purpose of showing you how this build works from scratch, I'm not going to be doing that. The general rule of thumb with this build is to use your drone to kill everything that's sort of close range, and to use the oxidizer for anything that's in cover. So usually from a distance. You can see there we've got it shows us a kinetic momentum symbol, which is a little bit misleading, but that's just essentially the rigger buff. So like this guy here, for example, see he's in cover. Going to fire that over there, nice and easy. This is a great example here, the drone guys. If you can hit those as quickly as possible, and then just focus your turrets on the guys that are pushing quite close. So yeah, it's quite easy to sort of, flick between your skills. Just always prioritise the thing that's most likely to kill you as a general rule of thumb. So like this guy over here, for example, if I can actually see him. What's that behind? There we go. Guys like that, you want to be using your oxidizer for that, because it does take him quite a while to get out of cover. If these get too close, you can just essentially place the oxidizer on the floor, as it seems to have quite high verticality. And of course you can use your drones to target these as well, which again will give you the damage buff. Now because that damage buff lasts for 10 seconds, they can just keep on going to kill things with the additional 50%, which is pretty substantial. And the whole point of this build is to not really leave cover too much at all, because you don't want to put yourself at risk here. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I enjoy how this plays. And that's pretty much it. Then you just run around and collect all your trophies. I know I had some trophies here at the start, but that's only because when I loaded in, the wall was already broken, and I killed those and the mission didn't progress, so I did have to restart it, but I guess that's just a new bug in TU12.
Encrypted signal source detected.
Right, well, the next area, so deploy both skills, get the double damage buff, build up my capacitor stacks. So this guy's quite close here. These are always your priority, so always get those down first. These are behind cover. The good news is that because this build does quite a lot of damage, it does have quite a nice stagger effect. Good knowledge of enemy spawns in this mission is key, so you really want to be sort of prepared for where they spawn. So here, for example, I've already got the cloud ready, just to make sure that I deal with anything that comes out. You see I did it on the other helicopters as well, just to damage them as they were coming down. You can even kill drones with it as well. Oh, even though I still rezzed him, I'm shooting. Good news is this weapon does have a scope, so you can still scope from safety. But I'm going to push forward here anyway, just because he's the last guy alive. You can see I'm already at full stacks, which is awesome. Now what I'll usually do here is always break down my skill in the previous area and then redeploy it when it comes to the next area, because then you get the full duration and of course the rigger buff as well. This guy's sat up top, pretty easy. Just like that. So nice and simple. Now this area here is one of the most dangerous. You need to be taking out the drone guys as fast as humanly possible. You can break the helicopters instantly by blowing up the explosive barrels, but it's very important to get rid of these drone guys literally immediately, and the grenadier guys, because they will absolutely take you out here.
Serious trauma detected.
Again, anything behind cover. So yeah, anything that's close to you. And you see my armor regen is really coming in clutch here. These are the barrels just here, I think. Yep, there we go for that one. The furthest one away is the hardest one to hit. They're just at the front, behind the back. So what we're going to do is just try and thin out as many of these as possible. Again, we're going to prioritise the grenadiers. I'm going to redeploy my skill onto him so I get the damage buff. There we go. Just going to keep him busy. So this is why the drone is so good. It's just keeping him totally busy. Now, if you can't see the barrel and you don't want to push it, you can just use your... there you go. You see it is damaging. You can just use your oxidizer to kill that. But it's not a necessity. You can just thin out the ads and then sort of get a bit closer so that you can deal with the actual explosive barrels. Ah, there it is. That's the line of sight I was looking for. So that's those all dealt with now. The sooner you get those done, the sooner that you can finish up the ads. So again, even though these heavies are dangerous enemies here, what we're being killed by here is these grenades. So pay attention to where they're coming from. It's very important that you finish those off first whenever there's a new one. So I know it's this guy down here. To get a little bit more health back. Make sure he's getting tanked away. And then there's the grenadier guy here. So that's flushed him out of cover. I've redeployed my skill to him. He'll be dead in just a second. And of course my weapon's doing a lot of damage here as well. So again, these are rushers. Very important that you kill these quickly. Now the heavy's not going to do a huge amount to us until he gets close. I'm not too fussed about him yet. It's definitely more important to deal with anything else that can kill us from range, which this guy definitely can't. Luckily they move very slowly, so they do spend a lot of time in your oxidizer.
gonna need all the help you can get.
And that's it.
The support team.
So first things first here, take out these the turrets. Nice and easy to deal with. We're going to get our drone on the closest enemy, which it looks like it's this guy just here. And then we're going to finish off with these. It's nearly dead already. So you see this is just chunking them away. Look, one shot and that's dead. Nice and easy. And that gives me, remember I was saying that you get trophies for free on this section. Any one of these that you kill, the weak points automatically give you a trophy straight into your inventory if you haven't got to run and collect it. You want to be using your weapon as much as possible. Right, so there's a grenadier guy there, so we need to be prioritising him. So we'll keep our drone on the grenadier guy. That's going to stop him from throwing grenades at us. Now, because we've got 2 blues on the build and 4% armor regen, you can quite easily tank those grenades a couple of times. But so that's why I like the 2 blue. You know, people would argue, well, having an additional red instead of blue is stronger for weapon damage, and you're absolutely right. But we do enough damage as it is. Really what you want to do is be staying alive, so you can use that additional health and the armor regen for sort of knowing where the grenadiers are, because you'll quite literally see the grenade flying into you, and if it hits you it's okay. And then you can just sort of focus your drone on them and it will stop them throwing future grenades. This section is actually quite easy. You can change to the turret here, which I'm quite a fan of doing, but we're not going to do it now, just because I think that these 2 skills are the best in slot, and I don't want to keep changing skills and making it as confusing as possible. These are just great universal skills that will work absolutely perfectly for you. So again, drone guy back here. It's a very important thing to look out for. And the oxidizer killed the drones above his head, which immediately killed him. So that's absolutely perfect. It's the other side now. And again, keep an eye out for those drone guys. Make sure he doesn't deploy that, and if he does, it's okay, because our oxidizer will kill it anyway. As this guy's closest, we're going to be focusing him. Our armor regen is going to very comfortably keep us alive here. It's the wrong weapon. Right, there's the drone gun in the background there, so let's quickly get that off. Oh, he's just a medic, that's fine. And now that we've flushed out all the more dangerous ads, I know this guy's our classed as very dangerous, but oh, this guy's getting melted. The good thing with the oxidizers is it damages their health and their armor, so it is quite potent for that. I hear a Warhound somewhere. Ooh, why am I looking over there? That's weird. Right, Grenadier. So again, that is our #1 priority now. Where is he? It really doesn't take long. Because your capacitor buffs the damage of your oxidizer, as well as, of course, rigor, it does do some pretty insane damage. And you see this Warhound is completely distracted here, so he's just going to stand still. Nice and easy kill. Now, if you're fast enough, you can recall your drone when they do their EMP blast by double tapping the button that it's assigned to, but that's not the end of the world. Skill efficiency, which we have a ton of on this build, gives us skill haste, so we're going to get it back. Well, there you go, by the time I finish this sentence, apparently.
I'm ready to open the gate as soon as the area is secured.
Oh, everything just dies so fast. It's crazy. if you ever worried about running out of these, you'll never run out of them in a phase. I've never once done that in all the testing I've done of different versions of this build. You can always just hold fire in between different sections to get your skills back. This section's pretty straightforward. I think one of these is a grenadier, but I forget which one. I'm going to prioritise this guy first because he's a rusher and they will, you know, live up to their namesake if you let them. Turret guys, super easy to deal with here. Again, this is the oxidizer absolutely shining. There we go.
We're bringing a cylinder on board now.
I'm going to use a grenade here to stun this. Now we can't move. Oh, it looks like I also stunned my own drone. I didn't even see that guy. Woohoo! That was close. So that was a pretty hairy mistake that I made there. But watch my armor regen. This is a good opportunity to watch my armor regen here. It is flying up, absolutely flying up. And this is why it's good not to pick up your bonus trophies. I know it sounds weird, but when you're at max, leave them around because they give you bonus armor and a big boost to your skill damage. You just try and leave them around unless you absolutely need them. But let's focus this guy first. Warhound out the picture as well. Right, so that's going to be that convoy taken out. This guy as well. It really does not take long at all to deal with these guys. See, he's distracted there entirely by my drone. Hitting well over 200k per tick on this, and I could just deploy more if I really wanted to. Focus our drone on that res drone there because he's getting things. Oh, that's why I keep breaking it. I forget that the EMP's over there. And this is another good thing with the oxidizer. As long as you're out of range of that EMP in the background, it doesn't actually affect it. You can hit it from here as well if you want. It's a bit of a tough shot, but there we go. I actually forgot about that. So in this section, the turret might actually be better, as it doesn't get blown up by the EMP. But as you see there, I've killed it in a single oxidizer. So just try and start this engagement by killing that. And even redeploying it to the same enemy still gives you the damage buff. So, oh, he's just getting chunked down. Look at that. So if you pull it back to you now, if that's an EMP one, okay, that was actually a bleed one, but you can save yourself there from blowing it up if it gets out of range. Right, this next section we do have a couple of snipers that are sitting back, so again, Oxidizer's going to work its magic. My stack's put up, there's a Grenadier there, so let's find out who that is. It's the Warhound, okay. Okay, this is quite important that we kill this quickly. Which really isn't taking long at all. No, my poor drone. Sniper back there. Be careful about standing in your own oxidizer pools, because they will... I mean, they won't kill you, but they'll do a lot of damage. When your turret redeploys, this seems to be buggy, but when your striker drone automatically redeploys, it does sometimes give you the buff anyway, but I'm just in the habit of pressing the button that it's assigned to, in my case left bumper on Xbox, just to make sure that we're guaranteed to get that buff.
Copy that.
Sniper back there. See you later, buddy. Now, you won't blow up explosive barrels unless you hit them head on with the oxidizer, which is a bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world.
Tear you to pieces.
You can try and wait for the Warhounds to stop moving until you throw the oxidizer. There we go, we were lucky enough to break his spot there, so now we can just leave that on him. Bring the turret back to me so I don't lose the, don't get EMP'd. There we go, and then redeploy to somebody else. Once again, anything that's behind cover, just oxidize basically. As you can see, this literally just chews through everything. I'm going to break this down now for the next section. Make sure we get the full duration again. Now don't forget we do have a EMP over here as well, so I'm going to deal with that as quickly as I can. That's not good news. Thank you for pulsing that for me. Okay, that's dealt with. Now we can just get rid of this as quickly as possible. You see that oxidizer is still on the floor there. Now I have no red cores in this build apart from my memento, and I'm still, like, even my weapon damage alone is still just chewing through these. If you do pick up a bonus trophy, you will get more weapon damage and a lot more skill damage. Yeah, it doesn't take long to kill these. There we go.
You want me to run away? I thought you knew me better than that.
An order, Wyvern. Wyvern, you copy.
Right, Grenadier there, so that's the important one. Let's get rid of him first.
Support team will protect the cylinders.
Now we can focus on the big heavy. Now they walk slowly, so just place your oxidizer in front of them so that you know that you maximise the time that they're walking through it. This guy is literally just sat in it right now. Now I like to get up on this top right room here for this particular section, so I usually try and flush that out first because I just feel that it's the safest area to do this room. This is nowhere near the most difficult room, but obviously you want to try and maximise what you're doing with each room. Let's deal with that first. Oh, look at it chunking. Does so much damage. Reach that from here. That'll do. Oh, they didn't even make it to the floor. Didn't even make it to the floor. I can hear a Grenadier over there. I can. I already hit his weak spot just from the combination of the oxidizer and the capacitor. Should have pulled that drone back a bit early because it gets shot quite easily, and the shock does seem to last quite a while on these. But never mind. Then, so we are at the boss. Now, unfortunately, I did die as I had to answer the door midway through, which I couldn't avoid, so that kind of sucks as I was quite close to the end. What I'm going to show you now is sort of how to play this, the areas that you want to sit. To be honest, it is actually quite easy to die here, even in a group, let alone solo play, so this is going to be pretty hairy here. I'm still going to stick with the same skills. The Oxidizer is crucial here. If you want, you can change the drone to a turret. You know, that works quite well if you sit where I sit, but I am going to stick with the drone because it's very effective at distracting, so I still think the same two skills are very good here. If you do have more than one person, I highly recommend that you get somebody on a relatively high skill build with a decoy so it lasts a long time, just because that can take so much heat off of you. You have a lot of threats here that can kill you if you're not in cover. Snipers, sniper warhounds, drone controllers, grenadiers, and the boss are all really effective at killing you even in cover, so you have to prioritize any of those when you see them. The heavies and the standard warhounds are interesting. You're the least of your concerns, even though they're usually the most dangerous. You really want to be prioritizing those grenadiers and drone controllers. Now your turret, your Oxidizer is very effective at keeping the boss subdued, as she keeps dodge rolling around, so she doesn't grenade you as much because her ones actually set you on fire. So just bear that in mind. But honestly, it is easy to die here. Anyway, I came really close to dying a few times before I did ultimately die from having to answer the door. So what you want to do first of all is kill the 3 things here and then go to the bottom right. Now you do want to be ending up in the top right area. Make sure you see the red circle for these. And that's them dead.
Jesus Christ.
So I like to go in this corner just over here.
Right now.
The good news is, as they're classed as weak points, they will give you a trophy regardless. Some ammo. And then just start killing stuff. Didn't even see that guy. Flush this guy out here if you can do that. So what I'm going to do now is grab some ammo. And I'm going to migrate to the top. Now you probably will need to come and grab some more ammo here because there are, even for a solo play, there are tons of enemies here. Radar awareness is absolutely crucial when you need to be listening out for audio cues of anything firing. Like there, you see that sniper we just heard. Anything firing, you know, drones, grenadiers, you've got to be listening out for that and looking around for it because you will die if you're not paying attention. This is a rough mission. Now again, in group play with this build, I wouldn't change any part of this build. It's exactly the same thing because there'll be more of the dangerous enemies. So here again, place your Oxidizer at the bottom of the ropes. Drones actually ran out, but that's not the end of the world because you have loads of skill haste from Memento. I mean, these guys are already nearly dead, so just, you know, the faster that you kill stuff, the better, basically. And the little bits of respite, go and grab a nearby trophy. You know, whilst you can, whilst it's safe to do so. So here, all we're going to do is fire it right in the centre. See the 2 red lines connecting to each of the weak points? That's going to be dead in no time, so that's already done. So you don't have to worry about the timer here. Just the moment you hear that alarm, even if it hasn't fully deployed, because we have a lot of skill duration, and that's why I said you want the Murakami, you know, you want the rigger for the skill duration and for the extra damage. Just fire it straight away, and by the time they've deployed, your Artificer, your Oxidizer will still be there, and just kill them straight away. As soon as the boss comes out, you want to be getting a couple of them on her as well, because it does help to prevent her from grenading you. Now she will still do it, so listen out for the sound. And if she does, you need to be ready to dodge roll. Luckily she went for my drone there, so that's great news. You're not always that lucky, so just be prepared to dodge roll. I'm going to keep it on her. Sticking with these guys. So now we've heard that sound again, all we've got to do, fire it there. That's forgotten about now. If she does hit you, this is why you're on the 2 blues and the 4% armor region. I'm actually basically healing through it. We'll retop this back off just to keep her busy, hopefully get her to drop down. Anything that comes close, make sure you deal with straight away. Again, use your cover. When it's safe to do so, pick up your trophies. Don't walk into your own pools. Oh, it's this one right above me, isn't it? Whoops. So that dealt with as well. So look at the duration, this is still here. That can actually cause you a problem in situations like this, but right, now we're going to start trying to chunk our way as much as we can. reason I can't redeploy my drone. Okay, I guess it's gone per, that's fine. Not the end of the world. Still chunking this guy pretty hard. Boss is already pretty low from my drone, so that's good news. Right, now we have a big wave here. This is where you've got to be really careful. These sniper dogs will... Look at this. Look at that! If you can, I like to just grenade the living hell out of everything here. If you're lucky and you get one down, then you can kill it. There we go. That's what we're looking for. You've got to be careful here. Stack a couple up, because once one of these goes down, it will disable the others. These will kill you, these sniper warhounds, so just be very careful. There we go, that's what we were looking for. So now these are going to die very easily. I like to get 2 off, because that's usually enough just to deal with them, but... Well, that one's about to die there. Okay, the boss has actually grenaded me, so that's fine. So this part here, this is the difficult part. As soon as that dog dies, it's going to hopefully disable the other ones. So that's going to keep them out of the picture. Let's deal with this guy here. Now, if you want at this stage, you can just leave your drone on the boss at all times. That's not actually a bad strat, because as soon as she dies, that's kind of you've got less to worry about then. There we go, that's them disabled. And that's pretty much it. That last part there is by far the most difficult. So now all we have left is the boss. Who's very nearly dead anyway. In fact, as soon as I do this, she probably will be dead. And there it is.
What's your status?
That's how you solo it. So, yeah, pretty hairy. It can quite easily go wrong. But as long as you follow those basic rules, so use your oxidizer for these, fight in the bottom right to grab your ammo, get up here as fast as possible, always prioritise drone controllers and grenadiers and anything that's close to you. Try and keep your drone on the boss at all times. And you'll be good, you'll be gravy. Use the oxidizer on the 3 missiles, and that's pretty much it. Quite easy to die if it does go wrong, don't get me wrong, but at least you'll start from this section again. This build works really well in a group or in solo, so play it however you want, but you know, I've just proved that you can run through this mission solo with relatively minimal difficulties, and I'm glad that I finally found a use for rigor. If you do feel there's a better version of this build to run through this solo, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please do let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to hear if any of you have a solo build for Tidal Basin. But yeah, until then, I'll see you all in the next video.